Hello, my name is Robert Dean Steele. I want to share a little story with you about a fellow whose name was Tom. Now, Tom was an interesting character. I met Tom in the city of Yellowknife some 40 years ago now when I think about it. I went to the community of Yellowknife back in 1985, and I was the pastor of Tom's wife, Connie. Now, Tom was a wheeler and dealer, and he was, a businessman in the community, and but he was pretty hard nosed. And I remember many, many times Connie coming to church with her family. And I would say, "Where's Tom?" And she'd say, "Well, he's not coming. He doesn't believe in redemption." And many times she would come forward and she says, "Would you pray for my husband, Tom? Because, he is a typical man of the world. He has strong opinions, and especially concerning Christianity and her faith in Christ, and would often mock her and would often, say derogatory things." Now, this is where the story gets really, really cool. I had the privilege of moving to my present location, which is in uh, the community of St. Albert, Alberta. And when I looked at the roster of the church that I currently pastor, Connie's name was there. Well, of course, Connie, the first Sunday when she came to church, we reconnected, and it was just absolutely marvelous. And she said, "Would you pray for Tom?" I said, "I would gladly pray for Tom." And then she said, "Would you visit him?" I said, "I would be very happy to visit him." Well, Tom and we connected. And it wasn't very long that I said, "Tom, why don't you come to church sometime?" He says, "Well, I will." Then one Sunday morning, Tom came to church. And it was interesting that when I gave the invitation, Tom came forward and gave his life to Jesus Christ. Now, God had been working on him. Now, you have to understand, I left the community of Yellowknife in 1990. And now, 20 years later, I was having the privilege of being able to be connected again with Tom. God worked on Tom for 20 years, and he gave his life to Christ. Well, then it was very, very exciting where Tom would get up in the morning and his wife would go, "Oh, I'm so tired." He says, "You can't miss church." And Tom came to church quite often. And we had some wonderful fellowship together. And it was interesting that then Tom got sick. And I went to visit Tom quite often in the hospital. And then later on, when he was, found himself in an extended care unit. Well, Tom passed away. And I had the privilege of being able to do his funeral. And at his funeral, I was able to say, and I was able to tell the same story that I am telling you today, is the fact that don't ever give up on someone, especially in the area of salvation. Remember, when he was in the community of Yellowknife, he was hard-nosed. He was, mocking Christianity. He gave his wife a hard time. But over time, God moved on him. And I consider it an absolute privilege because I had many conversations with Tom during those years in Yellowknife. He was always gracious to me because I was, the pastor of his wife. And in that respect, he was okay. But later on, when I had the privilege of winning him to Christ, doing a little bit of discipling, and then doing his funeral, and then doing his wife's funeral as well later on, to be able to interact in a redemptive way, in a salvation-orientated way, it was wonderful. And it's one of the stories that I love to tell about to families. I say, you don't know how God is going to move in that situation. So don't give up. continue to pray. I remember many times having conversations with Connie after Tom had gone home to be the Lord. And she says, Pastor, life was so different in those last couple of years with Tom, because the simple fact is he was at peace with himself, he was at peace with God, and he was at peace with me. And that is the upside of what happened in Tom's life. So please don't give up. Stay with it, because the truth of the matter is God's not finished with your family, and God's not finished with you. And you never know, you may have a Tom story in your life as well. My name is Robert Dean Steele. God bless.